Let's talk about another expansion of IP, Geoff.
Yes, let's talk about this.
I mentioned Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. What about Lord of the Dance?
I don't know what that is. What do you mean?
Michael Flattery? Riverdance? You don't remember the Riverdance craze of the mid-90s, Justin?
No.
All the TV commercials, they just be like, like 25 people. They're all like this. And wait, you can't see my legs, but they'd be doing their like Irish jig and like.
Wait, is this Irish step? You're trying to mime Irish step dancing when your legs are covered? Just imagine my legs are going crazy right now.
They're going nuts, dude. You can't even believe what I got going down here. It's like a fucking duck.
Amaze, Justin.
And Justin just took a hateful shit in my toilet and clogged it all up. Geoff.
And welcome to Bants. And Geoff, you know that's not true because you're in Connecticut and I am in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. So it's just physically impossible for me to have taken a shit in your toilet.
Justin, you're once again lying to the listeners. Listeners, we are together at this exact moment. And it's audio medium, so who's to say? I think that we all know who's telling the truth in this situation.
Actually, Geoff, we have started, this is a great segue, to post some short form video content on our socials, YouTube and Instagram. So there is actually video proof that you are indeed the liar.
Justin, I'm going to need you to go ahead and delete all of that. I'm going to need you to go ahead and let's start over, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, instead of doing that, Geoff, how's your weekend been? I don't know about you. I've had a great weekend.
Tell me.
Okay, well, I'll get into my weekend, I suppose. Well, it's very nice here in DC. The weather is wonderful. It's very warm.
Hello. We're having weather.
Spent some time at the park yesterday with Ellie, my dog, who I love very much.
Aww.
Did some reading.
My favorite living guard dog.
Saw this wonderful film, The Drama, which we will be discussing today on the pod, our main topic. And if my voice is a little bit deeper or more raspy than usual, I did go out last night.
What'd you do?
So I'm lightly hungover. We went to this bar called Desert 5, I think is the name of it.
Who's we? Who was there?
Shout out Meg, who I went with. Big fan of Meg.
Meg?
Yeah, she was at our wedding, Geoff.
I'm trying to remember who Meg is. What's she look like?
She's like a, white lady. She was dating Cam, really tall redhead guy. Do you remember her?
Yes. Oh, I remember Cam and Meg now. Okay.
Yes. So I went out with her to this like country bar, which I've actually never been to like a country bar before. I mean, a country bar in DC, they were playing like, Get Low. It was not really dedicated to the country. It was more of an aesthetic.
That's fun.
It was fun. And I hadn't really been to like a country bar before. And they did play the occasional like Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy or whatever. But yeah, fun weekend.
I got to tell you, every now and then, I know we famously are on record on the pod saying we don't love country music.
Yeah.
But every now and then there's just like, there's something about like singing a country song that is like wonderfully flat and loud. Do you know what I mean? Save a horse, ride a cowboy, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I think that something important about country music and from like the singing perspective is that there's a lot more classic country songs that are sung by men that have like low voices than in pop music. So I think like it actually suits like your register a lot better than a lot of pop music.
Don't tell me about my register, bitch.
Am I right? Do you want to tell me about your register?
Right. Yeah, I'll talk about my register, actually.
Okay.
Justin, the lowest note that I can sing on tune consistently is an E flat 2.
Impressive that you know that. I definitely don't know what my specific range is.
Well, I think you should learn it. There's this like little test I did on the interweb, and you like do your lowest note you can, and then you do a couple of scales up as high as you can, and then you try to sustain your highest note.
I was going to say I've seen like a couple ads for that on Instagram. So I know that I'm sure there's an app for that. But yeah,
I'm not doing those apps. They're all crazy and they all just bait and switch you. Remember the days when apps were actually free? Now they're like, it's free to download. And then if you want to use any functionality, it's $7.99 a month.
Shitification at its peak, Okay, well, we took a break last week, so we have a stack of hot tops to get through, a bunch of news. So
you know what we didn't talk about though?
What
What about Punch the Monkey and Mudang? Whatever happened to them?
That's like two different eras of social media discourse. Like Mudang felt like a million years ago. Punch the Monkey was relatively recent. What do you mean whatever happened to them? I think they're just living.
Yeah, but no more updates? We're not interested in what happens to them as they grow and age, mature, come into their own?
I'm still getting updates on Punch personally. I don't know what your algorithm is feeding you. Listen, this is the problem that we have with animals as a culture in general. Like once the baby animal grows up, nobody's interested anymore. You know?
Oh my God. Just like the Epstein folks and children.
Okay, well, why don't we get into some hot topics and move away from that?
All right, sounds good.
Let's play the sizzle. And Geoff, one of the big pop culture stories that we missed over the last week was, of course, this, I would characterize it as a bizarre controversy with Chappell Roan.
Very weird.
So do you want to do the recap or should I?
Why don't you go ahead? Because I'm already off to a bad start on the pod today.
Okay, so this all began when Chappell Roan was in Brazil for her performance at the Lollapalooza that was taking place there earlier this year. So I'm just gonna use all alleged stuff because we don't have any like recording or anything of this alleged incident. We just have the Instagram posts that all the parties and stakeholders posted about this incident. And I'm gonna apologize up front because I am not really a soccer guy and I do not know who the soccer player is. But this all began when a apparently like pretty famous footballer named Jorginho, no idea how to pronounce his name or if that's how you pronounce it correctly.
Jorginho,
perhaps. He posted on Instagram to share a story about his stepdaughter, who is by like sheer, 6 degrees of separation connections, is Jude Law's daughter. The actor Jude Law's daughter is Jorginho's stepdaughter. He posted on Instagram to say that they were staying in the same hotel as Chappell while she was in Brazil for Lollapalooza. And essentially, his daughter tried to talk to Chappell. And after attempting to talk to Chappell, or I think he just said that she smiled at her or something like that, one of Chappell Roan's security guards went up to her and very aggressively told her to leave Chappell alone. And this caused a lot of distress. At this point, this was the only perspective we had on the story. And soon after that, the mayor of Rio publicly said that he was going to ban Chappell Roan from attending any future festivals in Rio.
Nothing like that mayoral might.
This is why I characterize it as bizarre, because it's crazy that we have just some random athlete posting. Basically, it's like a notes app type post on Instagram.
Yeah.
And now Chappell Roan is banned from performing in Rio ever again. This is a little bit wild. But, Brazilians, I feel like they really take care of their own. They're very loyal and they feel very strongly about football/soccer. So it doesn't surprise me that this happened. It was a day later that Chappell responded with her perspective on the situation. And she said basically, and there's a whole video. We'll post the link in the show notes if you want to watch the video. And I'm just going to paraphrase here. She basically said that she didn't even know that this girl had tried to talk to her, and she did not order any security guard to talk to the daughter or her stepfather. And she apologized. She said she didn't apologize because she didn't know allegedly that this happened, but she did say that it's horrible that this happened to her, and she feels for her fans, and she doesn't hate her fans. I think that a lot of the discourse online, and we've talked about this in the past, Chappell, I guess you could say, is a little bit prickly when it comes to her public persona. She is known for setting boundaries around paparazzi and, the stan culture and stuff like that. So a lot of the discussion online was why does Chappell hate all of her fans, So in this video, she was like, it's ridiculous to say that I hate my fans or that I, don't like children or whatever. She's like, that's an insane thing. I didn't know that this even happened until the post happened.
Right.
That's the meat of the story. I think that the actual security guard spoke up and took responsibility and basically said yeah, Chappell didn't ask me to do any of that. And I apologize for talking to this girl. He apparently was there, not even on Chappell's payroll.
Well, yes, this is what I was going to say. Is the weirdest part, is that truly nobody asked him to do this, and this was in no way even this guy Pascal Duvier, who also was in charge of the Kardashian family's security when Kim was infamously robbed and held at gunpoint. He happened to be at this hotel for another event, and he just took it upon himself to berate this woman and child and tell them to stay away from Chappell Roan. He was not on her payroll. He wasn't even with the hotel security.
Yeah, it's
so
really
crazy.
weird. What's crazy is that, I mean, I saw a lot of like posts because people kept using like headshots from this guy after this happened. And it was just like, why is this random ass security guard now like the minor celebrity of the internet for these 2 days? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Very, very odd. And I guess that really wraps it up. I mean, there was a post from the child's mother, Catherine Harding, who posted a video in response. I guess my whole takeaway from this is that it's a similar situation to what happened with like Blake Lively almost. Like if there's somebody who like rubs people the wrong way and something like this occurs and is like basically an opening for people to suddenly start talking shit.
Yeah.
People are just
100%.
really ready to jump on that. You know what I mean? And that happened with Chappell. We've talked about this before, and I am way more supportive of like the boundary setting that Chappell does with her fans and with the paparazzi. And you're kind of like,
what do you mean way more supportive?
You have talked on the pod about the fact that like, you know, this is a reality that we live in if you're famous, that you're going to have to deal with this stuff. And that I think that you pushed back a little bit harder on some of Chappell's boundary setting. But what did you think about this situation?
I don't push. I believe in setting boundaries. I think that's perfectly great and healthy.
But
no, there's no but. I do feel like that's just the reality that you have to deal with when you're famous. Like, you're always going to have people who want a moment of your time or want to disturb your peace, and they don't even think about like how that's affecting you. So that's all.
Yeah.
I don't push back on her setting boundaries. I say good for you.
Good for her. Yeah, I just genuinely think that people need to like take a breath before they dogpile.
Don't forget to step and breathe.
I don't know. I think some of this is, again, people are just waiting for an opportunity to talk shit about a celebrity 100%. That for whatever reason rubs them the wrong way.
Yeah.
I hope that this like resolves for Chappell in a way where she is not dealing with this down the line, because it's really just a bizarre story.
I feel like it's been a lot of these little things with her, and I think you're right. It's just people are ready to pile on and jump on her shit, you know? And often it's not anything that has to do with her. Like she was not involved in the story other than being like the person that these people wanted to talk to and didn't get a chance to.
Exactly. And I mean, I think the reason why it blew up the way that it did was because she has this reputation for being prickly with fans. And I think that people feel really entitled to have a good experience with celebrities in a way that I think is like a little bit unreasonable. Like,
true.
I think that it's actually really cool that Chappell is like pushing back in this way that she has been to set boundaries with fans and stuff like that, because I think that it is changing the conversation around celebrities and like parasocial relationships.
I agree. Justin, speaking of parasocial relationships, this was a bad segue.
You have one with J.K. Rowling. You love her so much. Was that going to be the segue?
Yeah, well, I was going to say J.K. Rowling's actually your mom, and so let's talk about that. Notorious TERF J.K. Rowling is Justin Benavidez' mom.
That is absolutely not true. I would be living life. You know, I'd be just that inheritance. Whew.
Yeah. You'd be like, I don't know who you are. You would Chappell Roan me.
We're talking about J.K. Rowling because, of course, we've talked about it on the pod before. HBO is developing a rebooted version of the hit series Harry Potter.
Did you watch the trailer?
The trailer has dropped, and I have watched it. I've been on the record on the pod saying, like, I'm not really interested in watching this.
The lies.
Even before this trailer came out.
You can't get enough of the stuff. You're thrilled for this to come out because this means another bump to your inheritance.
What did you think of the trailer before I get into it? I'm assuming you've seen it.
I did. Well, I thought that the trailer looked like fine. And I was reminded of like how young Harry Potter is when the series starts out, because these are like true like baby children on the screen. Talking about Harry, Ron, Hermione.
Yeah.
I think that the casting of Minerva McGonagall is great. And those were my overall thoughts, I think.
Okay.
What did you have to think about that? Or what did you have to think? What did you have to think? What did you... Oh, God.
Words.
You just take over.
You're a podcaster. Okay. I was not impressed with this.
Okay. Tell me why.
Watching this, my main question is, why is this happening? Because if you look at this...
That IP money, baby.
It's literally as if you like Photoshopped Daniel Radcliffe out of the set of the original film and just Photoshopped a different kid in. Like, the sets look very similar. It looks almost like they're reusing the exact same props and sets. Take a look at it. It does not look like they're really doing anything with like a fresh take. It looks very just the same. of course, there's been like the side-by-side comparisons, and the lighting, of course, has that Netflix quality to it.
Yeah.
I just don't know why this is happening, and I wasn't really compelled. I feel like it's really pulling on those nostalgia strings where people are just like, I just want to see it again. And I guess I just don't see how that's interesting in any creative way.
Okay, what I find to be interesting is that this version feels much more realistic than the movies did. And like they filmed in real locations. There's like, at least like in the trailer, and there is not a ton of green screen. Like there's a lot of practical sets and like real life locations.
So you're saying that the original series used a lot of green screen and didn't use practical locations?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like this looks more realistic to me. Like the original Harry Potter was like a little bit more heightened looking. And I don't know if this has to do with also the recording quality, the Netflix lighting of it all.
Yeah. I think that the original Harry Potter films did use a lot of practical sets.
Yeah, they did.
One of the things they did best was production design. Some of those early films are a little shaky on other grounds, but the production design was always, on point. I still just don't see what the argument is here for making this. Usually when you get a reboot, it's like, okay, we're going to do something a little bit different here.
Man, the thing is, like, Harry Potter is like so beloved, and like
the fans that are left in the fandom are insane about it, I think. Like, they're very attached to the specific features that are either in the books or in the existing movies, So I think changing it too much, it's that kind of fine line situation, And there isn't that wiggle room that like superheroes have, where we have like, decades and decades of storylines about these characters where you can kind of pull from different things and mix and match.
Yeah, the Spider-Man of it all.
To make things a little bit different. And this is not a sequel or a prequel like we're going to talk about later with the existing franchise like Lord of the Rings, right? So they're basically just running it back.
Run it back.
It feels particularly cynical given like the creator. This is money going into like a living person's pocket that is like active in anti-trans public policy. So to me, that adds to the cynicism.
Well, Justin, talk to your mom. Try to get her to change your views. It's crazy that you're on here doing nothing about it.
Well, Geoff, sounds like you're going to watch this.
Well, Justin, we'll have to see. But I think I'm curious.
You think you're curious?
It's Christmas 2026.
It is like fast. That's the other thing I thought of was like, they seem to be trying to really get this out as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Because the kids, I mean, we don't want a Stranger Things situation where in year 3, suddenly they're 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they have all got a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah. So that's going to be tough, the scheduling.
I know. I wonder if these people all like signed on for like the full 7 years,
I'm sure they did. I'm sure this is exactly what they're hoping for.
Mad bills, dude. This is going to reinvigorate so much money into the Harry Potter franchise. It's crazy. Warner Brothers is like this. The fat cats at Warner Brothers
rubbing their hands. That's what I'm just like. It feels more cynical than even a usual reboot or a sequel or prequel because it is literally just like a copy paste.
Yeah. Well,
let's talk about another expansion of IP, Geoff.
Yes. Let's talk about this.
I mentioned Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. What about Lord of the Dance?
I don't know what that is. What do you mean?
Michael Flattery? Riverdance? You don't remember the Riverdance craze of the mid-90s, Justin?
No.
All the TV commercials? They just be like, like 25 people. They're all like this. And, well, you can't see my legs. But they'd be doing their like Irish jig and like.
Wait, is this Irish step? You're trying to mime Irish step dancing when your legs are covered? Just imagine my legs are going crazy right now.
They're going nuts, dude. You can't even believe what I got going down here. It's like a fucking duck.
Oh my. Okay. No, okay. I'm not really a big Irish step dancing guy. I don't know.
Well, neither am I. But it was inescapable in the or like in the mid 90s, like 95, 96, 97. The era when I started watching television.
I've blacked out all those years. No memory.
I know because, your mom was sitting in coffee shops writing all the time and she wasn't around for you. I get it. Anyways, Lord of the Dance, it was just like Riverdance was a thing. They'd be like, Lord of the Dance. That's how the commercial would start. And then they'd just be like river dancing, Irish step dancing as a huge group. It was a huge
So when
thing.
you said, what about Lord of the Dance? You weren't actually asking a question. You were just saying, Lord of the Dance, that happened.
Yep.
Okay,
that's
cool.
kind of what I do every time. I'm like, what about this?
I've noticed. I'm just kind of calling attention to it here.
You think I don't know?
I think you know. I'm just, we're doing a podcast here.
Just trying to shame
just bringing
me.
some attention.
I see.
I don't know about shame. I wouldn't moralize it like that, but.
Okay. Well, Justin, we talked about Lord of the Dance. Now we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings.
Yes, Lord of the Rings.
This is a very fascinating development that I didn't see coming. Everybody's been wondering, what's Colbert going to do now that his show is like canceled? And he doesn't have like the Daily Show anymore. He doesn't have the Stephen Colbert Show.
Is he going to run for office?
Is he going to run for office? A lot of people were asking it, Justin. He could be like the governor of New Jersey. He famously is a New Jerseyan. However, he said, I'm not going to do any of that. You birches are all going to be shocked at what I do next. And I truly was, because he has agreed to co-write the new Lord of the Rings film.
Yeah. This is an interesting development. I think that real heads know that Stephen Colbert is like a absolute fanboy of Lord of the Rings, of J.R.R. Tolkien's fictional universe.
True.
He is constantly explaining Lord of the Rings lore to people, like just on the side. It's just like a hobby of his. So
Nerd.
The Lord of the Rings fandom is not that surprising, but it is surprising that WB gave him the reins to this new film. We've talked about there's a different Lord of the Rings film in development right now called The Hunt for Gollum, and we talked about that in an episode of probably over a year ago now.
Oh, precious.
We were pretty skeptical of that. That one's being directed by Andy Serkis, who of course portrays Gollum,
of course.
But we were very skeptical of that, mostly because it felt a little bit like a cynical cash grab. You know, it's based on like 1 or 2 chapters from Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, who needs it?
Do we really need a Hobbit or a Gollum backstory film? I personally didn't think so.
I don't either.
If I heard about this project from Stephen Colbert, I would have said, if I heard about it without knowing that he was involved, I would also think that this is pretty tough, because this is similarly based on a couple of chapters from Fellowship of the Ring. Its working title is Lord of the Rings: Shadow of the Past, which is an absolutely garbage title.
Truly bad.
Terrible. And apparently this will take place after Frodo has sailed to the Undying Lands at the end of Return of the King, and it will follow the remaining hobbits.
Which, what do we care about them for? Merry and Sam and... What was the other one? Merry, Sam...
Pippin.
Fool of a took.
I mean, listen, Stephen Colbert is a talented guy. I'm trying to think if he has done something like this in the past, right? I don't want to like...
What do you mean?
Say that this is like, if he's done something that's outside of the realm of like comedy, made like a fictional... Been a screenwriter for like a fictional... film or TV show in this vein.
But his son is Peter McGee, his son.
Really? What's he worked on? Okay.
Oh, let me look it up, Justin. I'll do what you do. You pretend to know everything, but you're just Googling quietly in the background.
Do I pretend to know everything?
Oh, yeah, you do. Everybody knows it. Okay, so he was a producer and director for The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug.
Oh, no.
And that's tough, because
that's really bad.
Not good.
That whole trilogy was so bad.
How old is his son? Because
he was born in 1998, so he's pretty young.
But he worked on Desolation of Smaug and directed it?
He didn't direct it.
What? I thought I just read that on IMDb.
He had a cameo in The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. I'm reading now. This is why I do the Googling.
Yeah. You know what? That's very fair.
The Hobbit trilogy was directed famously by Peter Jackson, the same director as the original trilogy. The modern Lord of the Rings films after the original trilogy have been very inconsistent at best.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I want success for Stephen Colbert. I think he's like a really cool guy and a creative guy and very smart.
Yeah. This might not be it.
Until I'm proven wrong, any of these Lord of the Rings spinoffs, I just don't think that they have the juice. That's just me.
Listen, I quite agree.
Anyways, Geoff, that's enough about Lord of the Rings. We'll see how that turns out.
More than.
Wishing the best for Colbert. Let's talk about another prequel. Another expansion of IP yet again. Yeah. New IP this time, though. It was recently reported that Zach Cregger, who, of course, is the director and writer of Weapons, is going back into the Weapons universe to write a Weapons prequel about Aunt Gladys that is being called, although it's not a final title, Gladys right now. And he's co-writing this film with Zach Shields, who is a screenwriter that's probably best known at this point for writing the new Godzilla Kong universe films where they kind of team up or they fight each other or whatever.
What's happening there, by the way?
What do you mean?
I just think it's strange, the idea of like Godzilla and King Kong like being like, we're friends or we're enemies, like that they have like a lot of emotion. I always thought that like in the original films, they were just like, we just want to kill everything.
Well, that's where you're wrong. I mean, there's actually a lot of stuff. We could have a whole episode about like the Kong and Godzilla films and their history. Godzilla, of course, was originally a metaphor for nuclear weapons. And then after the original Godzilla kind of took off and became like a cultural symbol of Japan, it started kind of being like the personification or the literalization of Japan as a country. And it actually started being a defender of humanity. So like there's been a lot of different versions and subtext in Godzilla and in King Kong. I think that, a lot of the modern King Kong films are about like subjugation of nature and stuff like that. And Kong is symbolic of the natural world.
Kong Skull Island.
Yes, that was the prequel Kong film that led to eventually his team up / battle with Godzilla in Godzilla vs. Kong.
Do we think that there is an overlap in the universe of Super Mario and King Kong because of Donkey Kong?
No, there absolutely is not. Actually, there was a famous lawsuit where Universal sued Nintendo after the original Donkey Kong was released because of copyright infringement, and Nintendo famously won that lawsuit. So they are distinct entities legally.
Yeah. Check that, Universal.
But back to Gladys, Geoff. This was your favorite film last year. We just reposted our Weapons episode. I had a great time re-listening to that. We both really liked that film, but you even more than I did. What do you think about this prequel announcement?
Well, I am going to watch it because Gladys is one of the most compelling characters. And by the way, Justin, critics agree because she certainly did win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah.
We love that. So I am very excited to see Amy Madigan return as Gladys.
Do we think Amy Madigan is going to return to this?
Girl, she must.
Because this is
if it's not Amy Madigan, I'm not interested. For real.
For real. So I don't think she's attached yet, at least.
Miss Madigan, this is my plea, and I don't do this too often, but it is the day of our Lord and Savior, so I will pray that you decide to become attached officially to this project, Gladys, because who else could portray her? Let's actually do this. Who would portray her? Who would play her?
Well, it depends on when this is being set, right? I think that I've heard that this is when she's much younger. We're talking like in the 40s or something like that.
Okay, but Gladys is a witch and Amy Madigan looks great. She could play somebody in the 40s.
I agree. We weren't explicitly told in Weapons exactly how old she is. We don't know if she's like truly supernatural or if she is 8, you know what I mean?
189 years old.
She could be like hundreds of years old, or she could be like, just a normal elderly woman. We don't really have a sense.
What was the Red Witch's name in Game of Thrones? I'm forgetting. It starts with an M, right?
Melisandre.
Right. Melisandre.
Right. She could be like a Melisandre type. It was implied that she was like sucking the life force from these children, and that's why, spoiler alert for Weapons, that's why she kidnapped them.
Sucking the lives of all the children in Salem.
And that's how she was staying, alive, right? Or maybe she was trying to become younger. It was never like explicitly stated.
Yeah, which was part of the genius of it. Same with Dune. We talked about this with Dune,
exactly.
Too.
Better to like show this than to over explain. And I think that's where some of my skepticism about this comes in, because like if we learn like, oh, here's the lore behind Gladys, like this is exactly what happened, I feel like that may take out some of the mystique. But I'm comforted by the fact that Zach Cregger is involved, because he's a smart guy. Every one of his scripts is very smart and savvy about doling out exactly what's needed, and not over explaining things or getting too into the weeds. So I'm like surprisingly optimistic about this. I wouldn't be surprised if Amy Madigan is only involved as like a cameo appearance, and that there's a younger actress playing Gladys. And who would you like to see?
So who would play her?
Who would you like to see playing Gladys?
The person who first comes to mind, and I don't really have a reason for this, is Julia Garner.
Well, she was also in Weapons, yeah.
Right. She also played the teacher whose name I can't remember in Weapons, so that wouldn't really work.
I was thinking maybe like Amanda Seyfried.
Okay, that I like a lot.
She doesn't look a lot like Amy Madigan, but I think she can pull off the like crazy witch energy that Amy Madigan can do.
I mean, listen, Amanda Seyfried is an incredible actor.
She's great, yeah. And she knows how to have fun.
And singer. She does know how to have fun.
She does some of these campy roles as well. I mean, obviously her breakout was Mean Girls, and that was like, one of the all-time funny performances.
I agree.
That would be great if they can pull that off, but
I do think that there needs to be a similarity in appearance for sure. They could always cast an unknown, which I would love.
They could.
I love when they cast an unknown.
Cautiously optimistic for this one, though.
I love an unknown.
I think this one has the potential to be really good. Although, the franchiseification of every single success story in Hollywood is a little bit exhausting.
Justin, I quite agree.
Now, something that we haven't seen in a long time is Animorphs, which is something that we have had an entire episode about. Yeah, the Hork-Bajir, famously an alien species in the world of Animorphs.
Of course.
We got news from Variety, an exclusive scoop from Variety, that Ryan Coogler's production company, Proximity Media, is developing a new Animorphs television series on Disney+. And Geoff, we're so back. Animorphs is so back.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this.
I know you're personally excited about this. Big time.
I mean, this is like one of the most underappreciated franchises, I think, like for kids during that time, like for the amount of like cultural import that I think that series had on children during that era, we don't hear about it very much. And I think that's because it's kind of unadaptable.
Right.
It's either very special effects heavy, or you need, people, you need actually physical animals to be on set. And either of those things are like prohibitively expensive, and it's hard to do right.
Who's doing that? Truly.
This is the second television series adaptation. There was a Nickelodeon adaptation back, I think, like in the noughts, the early noughts.
Oh my God. I vaguely remember that.
Pretty bad. And, the special effects were like very green screen.
But it was like cheap green screen.
Exactly. For those who don't know, this is a series about a group of teenagers. These are people who are like 13 and 14 years old who encounter an alien ship, and they basically obtain the ability to morph into different species of animals. So it very much like tickled the part of my like 6-year-old brain that was like really obsessed with animals and like specifically what species of animal and like fun facts about each of them, because they would transform into a new animal each book.
Yes.
But it was also very much a story about war, because a lot of this was contemporaneous with the war on terror post 9/11. And it was actually like really harrowing and pretty dark for a young adult series. So I think that's why it's kind of stuck around in the culture. What's up, y'all? Editor Justin here for a quick Animorphs clarification. So it turns out the entire Animorphs series was published between 1996 and 2001. So the entire series actually ended before 9/11 even happened. K.A. Applegate was probably writing about the Gulf War, although I think it has a lot of resonances on the War on Terror. So let's get back to the show. All of that is to say that for me, this is a very important one. I think that the tone is very difficult to pinpoint because it has to be accessible, I think, for younger viewers.
Yeah.
And it is also quite dark. So matching that tone, I think, is going to be a bit of a tightrope walk. And we'll see how it turns out. What do you think?
I actually think that Disney's going to do a good job with this. They tend to do a really great job no matter what the subject matter is, for like that preteen group, like kids
young
that
adult.
are like I would say like if they're like 9 to 13, 9 to 14,
Scholastic book club type stuff. Yeah,
exactly. They do a great job with programming that is like designed for that particular micro demographic, because they're able to keep it like fanciful and like accessible, but also deliver like some complexity to characters who are like understanding their emotions for the first time, or who are dealing with complex situations in an increasingly complex world. I think that they do a really great job of creating spaces for younger audiences to like explore that sort of burgeoning consciousness.
Yeah. And there's a similar series on Disney Plus right now, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which is
Percy Jackson,
also based on like a YA from the similar demographic type thing. And I haven't watched that, and I know that it's like a much beloved.
I haven't either, but it looks
series,
good, like good quality.
Yeah, for people who are maybe just like a little bit younger than us, like that is a big book series for them. And I think that group is pretty happy with that TV series.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they can, really hit the bullseye in this one too. But it's just a challenging thing to adapt, right? Because it works really well in book form, where you don't have to like find a bear, or like CGI a bear. To put into your show. You know what I mean?
Right.
What were you thinking?
I wasn't sure what you meant.
Okay.
I really wasn't sure what that meant. I thought it was an idiom that I'd never heard before. But find a bear. I mean, try P-Town. Try P-Town any given day.
Okay, last hot topic. This has been a long hot topic section, but we're getting through it.
We love a hot topic. Come on.
And this is a big one. We had to include this one.
Justin, this is a big one for you, but it's also huge for me.
Olivia Rodrigo has just announced her third album, which is going to be titled You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. This is her third album. There has been a lot of speculation all year that she was going to drop something this year. She's been teasing it for a while, and it's coming out on June 12th. We don't have a single yet, but she has released the album artwork where she's swinging, and it's actually a really cool image. It's kind of like, blue sky in the background.
It's instantly iconic, I have to say.
She's upside down. It's a wonderful album cover. I feel like Olivia Rodrigo is one of the more interesting pop girlies we have. And it's been weird that we haven't been able to talk about her that much on the pod because she hasn't dropped any new music since we've been doing it.
Right.
So I'm very excited to talk about this album when it comes out. Are you excited?
I am, and I also love a long title. I love a very short title or a long one, and she did that with like Sour and Guts, and now it's You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love. Love that. That's fun.
There was a lot of speculation when she was like teasing this rollout, right? Because Sour and Guts both are 4-letter words. And, you know, some artists are very like specific about how they title their albums. There was a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
This one would also have a 4-letter title. Maybe it would be Love because the word love was popping up in these teases a lot. So it was a bit of a subversion to see that the album title was so long. And I think it's like very O-Rod, right? Even when she's in a happy relationship and she's feeling good about that, she's still kind of emo, you know?
And this is something that I love about her because, like, just like her album titles, like Sour, Guts, You Seem Pretty Sad for a Girl So in Love, like, there is, like, a tinge of, like, vinegar to all of them that I really like and reminds me of, like, our Hot Topic era growing up, you know, as kids of the 90s.
I mean, she is an artist that is heavily inspired by, like, the Riot Girl. I shouldn't even say Riot Girl because it's after that, but really, like, the scene movement.
Yes.
We're actually going to have an episode where we'll probably get into this in more detail, but like the Paramore era of pop music, right?
Yeah.
She's talked about publicly, you know, the influence that Hayley Williams and Paramore has had on her. And it's very obvious listening to her music that she's influenced by that stuff.
100%.
She has a real hard rock edge. And she also has that emo edge, both in like the scene sense and in the like the Cure sense. You know
she's
what
like
I mean?
Always in her feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I really like that because we have a lot of people who are doing Put Your Hands Up, and that's fun, and I like that music a lot, you know, in the pop landscape. But I like that she's kind of doing like the everything's not that great.
Yes.
We're having like a bit more realism and a little bit of cynicism injected into the pop landscape, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, there's some acid in all of her music.
Yeah, acid, vinegar, exactly. There's just like a tinge of something is slightly acerbic, a little off. I'm using a lot of vocab words today, Justin.
You're killing it today on the vocab front.
Please clap.
Point for Geoff.
Woo!
Yeah, so can't wait for that album to come out. We'll certainly have an episode about it when it does.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
What do you say we take a quick break?
But we're having such a good time.
Well, we'll come right back. And then we'll talk about the film, The Drama.
Okay. Back.
Geoff, we're so back. And it's time to talk about a film that I think has been pretty divisive in the culture, the zeitgeist. Haven't used that word in a while. And that film is The Drama. This is the 4th film from Norwegian director Christopher Borgli. This follows his 2023 cult hit Dream Scenario, which was a Nicolas Cage star vehicle. Was well received in like critic circles, but didn't do big numbers. This is kind of his like big mainstream breakout from A24. I would describe it as a romantic black comedy, although I think genre wise, this is a weird one. I think a lot of people are going to come away from this feeling a little bit confused, ?
Yes.
Maybe offended. This movie stars Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. Zendaya pulling Anne Hathaway. She's in like a million movies this year. She's also going to be in Dune 3 and The Odyssey. So she has a big year coming up.
Huge year.
Robert Pattinson also going to be in Dune 3 and The Odyssey.
Right.
And they are playing an engaged couple who just before their wedding find out surprising secrets about each other.
That is an understatement.
I'm trying to keep, we're going to have to get into the spoilers, I think, pretty quick, but I am trying to keep it spoiler free just for this beginning part. And I do want to touch on a controversy that I learned about just before I walked into the theater about this film and about its director, Christopher Borgli. So just before The Drama premiered, a old essay that was in the article D2, which is a Norwegian magazine, kind of in the vein of like New York Times magazine, where it's like associated with like a regular periodical. And this is kind of like the artsy magazine version that has like essays and short fiction and stuff like that. This was published in 2012. And basically Borgli, who wrote the article, was then 27. He's now, of course, much older. It's 14 years later. He's in his 40s now. But the essay is about a relationship that he had with somebody who was a teenager, apparently 17, according to this article. The age of consent in Norway is 16. This is still, pretty questionable essay.
Yeah. Writing an essay about this is crazy, by the way.
It really is. And then, like, if you read the essay, it's pretty wild. Like, he basically justifies his choice by comparing it to the relationship that Woody Allen has with a teenager in Manhattan, which I think is, like, pretty crazy choice to be making. I mean,
okay. What the fuck?
2012, I think even at that point, we were out on Woody Allen,
That would be like if I was like, you know what, guys? Epstein might be dead, but he had some good points. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a crazy comparison to draw.
I mean, I agree. And I think that in 2012,
DeFerk?
even at that point, we were pretty unified as a culture against Woody Allen, you know? And it just feels very, like, unaware, self-unaware, very, in a word that you like to use, unexamined.
I do like that word. It's a vocab day.
Yeah, I just feel like it's worth mentioning that because I do think that there are some parallels between this real life scenario that he went with and what happens in the film. I think that there are some, like, thematic through lines.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, we can get into that when we get into the spoiler section. I think that it did, for me going into the theater, cloud what I thought I was going to see, right?
Sure.
Because it does suck when a movie is good and, like, the lead creative, because Borgley also wrote this film alongside a co-writer. When the lead creative is involved with a controversy like this, there is nothing. He was not legally doing anything wrong in the country that he is from, and social norms, of course, differ from country to country. I'm not really familiar with Norwegian norms surrounding this stuff.
Yeah,
but it does have a certain ick quality to it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts from you on that?
Justin, I'm glad I didn't know this before I watched the film. I don't think I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I think that this guy seems like a bad guy.
There's a Hollywood Reporter article that is summarizing the translated version of this essay. It was written in Norwegian, so it has to be translated. And there's always the possibility that something is lost in translation here. I don't know. But
did you ever see that movie?
Well, he actually cites that movie in the essay as another example of an age gap. Although I do think that movie, Lost in Translation, is kind of about what leads you to be in a relationship with that large of an age gap, right? Like, it's about these two characters and how they're both, like, very flawed. And if you read the essay, he says, I thought about Lost in Translation, but then I decided to go with, Manhattan instead.
Okay.
It's a pretty wild choice in the essay. They did reach out to A24 and to Borgley for comment, and they have not, at least at time of recording, received a comment from either party. So it does seem like they're playing we're not going to make a statement about this strategy here, instead of going the Streisand effect way and trying to comment on it or get out ahead of it.
This is going to ruin all chances that they had at any kind of awards, I think.
Yeah, I think that this is not an awards movie anyways, to be honest with you. I think it is. Even if this didn't happen, there are other controversies that I think can spin out from this film and already have kind of, like, started. There's a lot of discussion online about it.
I haven't read anything because I was trying to stay spoiler free for the movie.
Right. And the spoiler, I think it is really important to the experience of watching the film that you don't know going in. So what I'll say is, after saying all of this, if you are interested in seeing the movie, I do recommend that you skip once we get into spoilers and see it cold turkey, because it is a much better experience seeing with the twist intact. And all of that is kind of lead up to get into the movie itself. So, Geoff, what do you think of the drama high level? We're going to keep it spoiler free for these initial thoughts.
I thought that the movie was, like, had a very provocative idea behind it, but I don't know that it necessarily executed. And I think that it was interesting that this movie kind of subverted the normal format where there's what's interesting is that the inciting incident was a plot twist.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened, like, within the first, 25 minutes or so of the film. And what I did like about this movie, I think, was that we got to, really witness, one character in particular's, how they were processing this new information that kind of turned their world upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't so much about, any kind of huge plot there wasn't, a huge set piece or huge event that, occurred in the film that we were building up to. We were really just kind of witnessing this character dealing with like a really fucked up piece of information that they gathered.
Yeah.
And just watching them like spin out for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
It was, what did you think? It's hard to talk about this without like spoiling anything.
Yeah. Well, I really liked it, actually. Like, I came out of the theater being like, that ruled. And, I've been kind of wrestling with the history of this director in my head at the same time that I really enjoyed the experience of watching the movie. I think what I really liked about it is that it is like really insightful about the ways that and I think like the Robert Pattinson and Zendaya characters in this film are very much, they're almost like satirical, like upper middle class millennial archetypes, where it's like they're so concerned with seeming cool, seeming quote unquote normal. And this movie is really good at kind of depicting the weird kind of intrusive thoughts that I think are like a universal thing that everybody has, and like the weird little ways and the weird little things that we all do, the lengths that we go to seem normal. The movie begins, and this is not a spoiler in the twist because this is like, again, the very first scene of the movie. It begins with the meet cute, right? It begins with how Robert Pattinson's character and Zendaya's character, whose names in the film are Emma and Charlie. It starts with Emma and Charlie meeting at this cafe. And Charlie sees Emma reading a book and he's looking for an in. So he's like, okay, let me search this book. I'm going to look up a plot summary.
Goodreads.
And then, he looks on Goodreads. And then he like goes up to her and he's like, great book. Actually what's crazy is when she gets up to go like get a coffee, he goes up, takes a picture of the book and then searches it. So like, this is something that I think is like, again, it would be very easy to write that off as just like, this is psychopathic behavior. That's like crazy weird. But I do think that like this kind of thing that people do happens all the time. These like little weird things. And then he twists it to make it look like a normal entry point. Right. And then, of course, we learn that many other characters are also this way in this film. Right. There's other characters who are like bending over backwards to try to seem normal and try to seem like they are the ones who are like the moral person in the conversation. Without spoiling, it's hard to get into like specifics there. But I do think that like that in the dynamic of a marriage is really interesting, because I think this comes from a book that I talked about on the pod before a really long time ago, the Outline trilogy from Rachel Cusk. She has a line in there where she talks about any romantic relationship as like a process of knowing someone. I mean, in the biblical sense, sure, but also just like who a person is. And I think that like long-term companionship is really one of the few types of relationships where you have to learn somebody, all of their warts, all of their weird insecurities, all of their like compulsive tendencies. And it's really easy to not form those types of relationships with like friends that you can just like not see by choice, right? But like if you're kind of with this one person all the time, you get to know them. And basically what happens in this film is one partner learns something really shocking about the other partner, and then you have to deal with whether or not you still want to be with that person. And that's like the conflict of the entire film. So I do think that it's really insightful in the way that it kind of skewers everybody's inherent hypocrisy, right? Like if they hear something that somebody does and they're like, that's insane shit, like I would never do anything like that, without having any thought to like all the kinds of weird little thoughts or intrusive thoughts that I think we all deal with on like a day-to-day basis. And I think that Borgley does a good job of like visualizing a lot of those intrusive thoughts and kind of like nightmare scenarios in the film in a way that like literalizes those anxieties.
For me, that was like one of the best things about the movie, is that the way that he depicted the thoughts that the characters were having in real time in the very intrusive style in which they occur, I think was really evocative. And I think that it made us completely understand like where these people's like weaknesses or insecurities or their concern about how they're perceived.
Exactly. Yeah.
How that like kind of pervades every aspect of their actions.
So let's take a spoiler break now, and then we'll get into what the twist is. What's up, y'all? If you want to skip spoilers for the drama, you can go ahead and skip to the 1 hour, 32-minute mark. All right, let's get back to the show.
Spoilers abound, F-slurs.
Okay. In the trailer for this film, kind of the hook of this film, one of the first things that happens is that at a wine tasting for their impending wedding, Emma and Charlie are hanging out with their friends Rachel and Mike. Rachel, played by Alana Haim, truly detestable character. Like,
listen, I want to talk about Miss Alana Haim for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she has been like good in everything I've seen her in. I did not watch Licorice Pizza, which is on my list, so that I can like really get the full experience of her as like a main character.
Yeah.
But she was so good in this role. I fucking hated to see her coming up on my screen. I was like, not this woman again.
This motherfucker, yeah.
the fucking speech, which we don't have to get into that yet. The speech was crazy. I was like, this is the worst person I've ever met.
And we all kind of know this person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have seen this person in the wild.
100%. Yep.
She just sucks so bad. Her character Rachel sucks so bad. But yeah, they're having a conversation during this wine tasting with their friends Rachel and Mike. Mike is the best man. Rachel's the maid of honor. And they say that before they got married, Rachel and Mike, because they're a married couple, they said that they told each other what the worst thing they ever did was. So like they share their stories. And then I think really tellingly, it's like Charlie's turn to tell his story about the worst thing that he's ever done. And he can't come up with anything. I mean, in my opinion, he's definitely lying.
Oh, 100%. He's an interesting character because I feel like I walked away not knowing very much about him.
Because he's the most kind of neurotic about the way that he's perceived of anyone.
Which is so funny and fitting that he like works in like an academic type of setting.
My God, yeah, museum curator. This does have a really serious, like, how are you affording a Boston apartment on a museum curator salary problem?
That was crazy.
Yeah.
That too, like a duplex with the spiral staircase.
Gorgeous apartment.
This is one gripe I have with this movie and all movies that do this. I'm like, where's a set decorator? Where's a production designer being like, hey, you know what would be believable? Our characters that have these enormous windows and are very insecure people should be shutting their shades at night. What are we doing about that? That's crazy to me.
I'm sure it was just like an aesthetic choice.
No, I don't care. That's not what these characters would do.
So Charlie, during this conversation at the wine tasting, avoids the question completely, basically. And then it comes to Zendaya's character, Emma.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the big gasp that happened in at least my theater. Emma reveals that she went really far when she was a teenager towards planning a school shooting, to the point where she had like recorded video diaries, calling out specific bullies, being like, you're going to die first. Like was like practicing with her dad's rifle.
It's very Columbine.
There's this like physical manifestation of this, which is that she actually is deaf in one ear, and she lied and told Charlie that there was like a congenital deafness thing. But as it turns out, she actually deafened herself by practicing with her dad's rifle in practicing for the school shooting. And I think that this scene is like really well acted, felt very like natural in the way that it built up to this reveal. You know, I think Charlie's reaction of like nervously trying to laugh through it and hoping, like praying that Rachel and Mike will kind of just be like, haha, that's funny. Like it was just perfectly executed, I think.
This scene was my favorite scene in the film because it was so well done. It was very realistic. Firstly, it sets it up perfectly that Charlie is like spinning out over this because he can't even talk about what his worst thing is.
Yeah.
Because he's just as like incapable of like confronting any of his demons and confronting any of his like insecurities head on. And I love that Zendaya's character, Emma, I keep forgetting her name, completely let down her guard and was like enjoying this experience like of connecting with these people so much that she just like said her thing. And I love that like they completely disregarded the awful thing that Rachel did with zero
which is so funny. I mean, there's so many layers to this whole thing, right? So like, okay,
yes,
a couple of things. I found it interesting that you're saying that Charlie is like kind of unwilling to attack these anxieties, because what's interesting is when this fallout happens, like the morning after, because I mean, the night of, it's kind of like a bomb goes off, right? Because not only does she reveal this, and then, you know, she's like, no, this is a real thing. And then Rachel, played by Alana, is like, oh, my cousin was injured in a school shooting and now she's in a wheelchair. And like, this better not be a joke. And, you know, how can you say that? Like, that's insane. This is really bad or whatever. And then it kind of just blows up. And then Zendaya, Emma, pukes all over the table because she's trashed after this wine tasting. So it's like they don't really talk about it that night. But then when Charlie starts to break it down, he's like very analytical about it. He's like, I would like to know every specific detail about what happened so that I can try to process it, right?
Yeah.
And Emma is more like, this is in my past. I have already like dealt with this, and I have already felt guilt about it, and I have already like moved on from that version of myself. Like, I am now a different person than I was then. Like, she sees herself as completely different. And she's like, I don't really want to talk about it or analyze it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was interesting. She was willing to engage with it to a point, but I think once she realized the gravity of the situation, how deeply it was affecting Charlie, she was kind of like, let's just do over. And that's kind of an interesting thing with her, because that is like how her character acts throughout the film in every kind of setting. It's like, as soon as things get like sticky or hairy, she's like, let's just start over. And that is literally what she did when she like abandoned the school shooting thing and like embraced becoming like a gun violence what's the word?
It is like an advocate, like an anti-gun advocate.
Yeah, but like I should say anti-gun violence, because she's not advocating for gun violence.
Right.
It's just fascinating. But she did it too when Charlie and her did the meet cute and he was like fucking it up, and she's like, should we start over? Like, that is just like her personality.
It's a recurring theme, and that's also how the movie ends.
Right. Wait, let's not jump ahead though. Let's not jump ahead.
Something that I think that Charlie is dealing with is like, how can you ever really know a person? Right. I know that I talked about knowing somebody, but like any big commitment to somebody in a romantic sense or like whatever, it is inherently a leap of faith, because like you just cannot know a person.
Yeah, you can only know people to a certain point, and I think almost nobody ever lets their like full character, their full self, like just like be completely bare to their friends, to their partner, to their family. Like, there's just like parts of people that we will always conceal, and it's almost for our, it's to protect ourselves.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I mean when I say like the literalization of a lot of these intrusive thoughts, I think, is really powerful, because that's not something that we see depicted either in our everyday lives or in film, right? Like, we are so psychologically put together, and we do so much to like maintain the air of put togetherness, that I think we all forget. Like, there's a line in the movie where, I mean, importantly, Emma never actually performed the shooting, right? She just like thought about it, was interested as a teenager in like the aesthetics of it, and felt a lot of anger at her bullies, which I think like, this is something that a lot of people go through, is feeling angry towards that, right? The question of like how many people in the world must have gotten like really close to doing something awful.
That was a very interesting scene when they talked about when Charlotte or Emma was talking about that, like saying like there could be so many people out there who were so close to doing something awful and snapping, and you just don't know. And then they did like a really interesting montage shot of like B-roll footage, basically, of just like people walking around the city who were obviously going through it emotionally.
Yeah.
With a voiceover of her talking about like how there are probably hundreds of thousands of people who were a step away from doing a school shooting or committing some kind of a homicide, or, just taking an opportunity that would have resulted in really bad fortune for other people.
Right.
I really enjoyed that scene because I thought that, it made us, the viewers, like think about that and be like, wow, how close are people around us to snapping at any given point?
Yeah, and I think that like a part of it is trying to say like we should all be a little bit less judgmental and more forgiving of like people, especially when they are teenagers. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 100%.
I'm sure if I went back into my teenage brain and like pulled out some of the thoughts that I was having, I'm sure there was some unhinged shit going on.
Oh, definitely. There still is. You just hide it now when we're on air.
Well, that's kind of the point of the movie too, right? Is that like everybody does have these kind of really weird habits, or I guess like neuroses that just continuously cycle in their head that we have learned as individuals to just like tap down and like keep dormant.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes out, and like in those times you can become an insane person, which I think I think the second twist, or the second like kind of horrible secret that comes out, is when Charlie is like processing all of this and he's like, I actually don't know if I can go through with this wedding. And he kind of has this almost like impulsive or like very poorly thought out attempt at like a hookup with his colleague, who's played by Haley Benton Gates, who was in The Moment. She was Charlie's like artistic director in The Moment. Also really good in this movie. I think that another really funny and great scene was when he brings it up to her, like, what would you do if you found out that your boyfriend planned a mass shooting?
Okay, I thought that scene was so strange.
Really? Why?
The way that... Sorry, I forget what her name is in the film.
Misha is her character's name. Yeah.
Misha, thank you. The way that Misha responds to that is very odd to me. She's just a sort of like, I don't really know. She wasn't like, what the fuck? what a crazy question. Why are you asking me that? She was just sort of like humoring him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very strange. And then I was wondering if there's like a power dynamic at play because like I think that he's her boss technically. It was very strange. It felt that part felt very unrealistic to me because I don't think that I know many, if any, people who would respond to his like very bizarre line of questioning.
I mean,
that way.
I got the sense that they were pretty close, like they were friends. You know what I mean? And like,
sure.
I mean, a random coworker, if I asked that question to, absolutely, you're right. No, they would be like, why are you asking me this? This is insane.
Justin, if I asked you that, you'd say the same thing. You'd be like, what the fuck?
Well, I think
this is insane.
I think the intention of the scene is that she sees it as like a hypothetical, like a conversation starter, right?
But to me, what's unrealistic about that, and yes, I agree with you. I do think that that's what she's thinking it is. But like to me, it's like that was so out of the blue, is on top of his erratic behavior, that it doesn't seem likely that this person wouldn't have been like immediately like, what's going on? You know, especially if they're close.
Well, I think that the other subtext there, she clearly figures it out that this actually like or could be real about Emma, right? Because by the time that the wedding comes around, she kind of puts two and two together.
Definitely.
But there's also obviously like she is kind of a shitty person and I think has like maybe a flirtatious relationship with Charlie because like when he attempts this like semi-affair, First of all, there's a comment during the salad scene when they're eating lunch where she's like
talking about cheating.
Well, yeah, he asks her what the worst thing she's ever done is, and she's like, "Oh, I cheated before." And then she like tells him the story about that. And then she also makes a comment about her like now boyfriend, and she's like, "Oh, the size of him though, he could take out like 3 guys." And it's very clear that she's just kind of vain and like enjoys having the big. She's like, "My boyfriend is the biggest and toughest boyfriend." And then when the attempted like hookup happens, she, there's absolutely no hesitation on her part. She literally like she leans into the kiss, like I hate to say the word like presents herself to him, but basically she's like, okay, we're doing this. Like
Justin presents herself.
She literally like bends over the desk. I mean,
yeah,
it was clear that she like there is something there. So I do think that is also part of the subtext of that earlier scene is that she's kind of playing into whatever he's doing, and she kind of senses, I think, that he's spiraling about something because he's acting insane.
I just didn't like that scene. Didn't work for me.
What did you think of Haley Gates' performance, though?
I think she's good in everything I've seen her in. But she was in... Well, I know that she was also in Challengers.
She was in Challengers,
do you remember her in that? She's kind of like similar. She plays like a similar energy in all these things. Like someone who's just like a little bit aloof and like a little over all the stuff going on, I feel like.
I think she plays like a slightly different flavor of her The Moment character, where in The Moment she was way more sympathetic, and I think her character in this film is way more just mean.
She's a cynic.
Yeah, she's definitely nihilistic. Yeah. She's like, I'm just in it for whatever. The other thing is that when it eventually comes out that this, makeout session and almost hookup happened, she like lies to her husband about the fact. She was like, no, I definitely wasn't into it at all. Like she has no problem just lying left and right,
Yeah, she's a bad person.
Yeah, clearly. Let's go back to Alana Haim's character. Something that you brought up earlier,
so tough.
Which is kind of like the dichotomy between like the actual act that she did that she said was the worst thing that she's ever done versus Emma's. Her worst thing that she's ever done was when she was a kid. She locked a fellow child that she referred to as quote unquote slow.
A little slow, yeah.
In a closet, locked him in a closet, and then just left him there without telling anyone.
In the woods.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It was like in a trailer in the woods that was like some probably like homeless person's like porn hideout.
Yeah. It was their goon cave.
So many levels to that.
Yeah.
Charlie brings us up to her. He's like later on when he's trying to convince her to attend the wedding, because this is the maid of honor. And she calls Emma around the midpoint of the film to tell her that she's no longer attending. So Charlie goes to her work and tries to convince her that she has to go to the wedding. And he's like, you did something that's like way worse. They go into the details on like during the conversation itself. And they're like, did they eventually find him? And like the only reason why they found him was like sheer luck, basically.
Yeah, they had like a search party.
Exactly. And I think Charlie or Emma asks like, so what if he just was never found? And then
she was laughing and she's like, well, we didn't have to worry about that. I obviously would have told somebody. It was crazy.
And I think that's something else that the movie deals with is kind of the like torturous unknowability of how things turn out, like how random chance can kind of influence what happens and what doesn't happen, right? Like,
sure,
Rachel's victim in this scenario was only found basically from sheer luck, right? And it's also only sheer luck that Emma ended up not committing the mass shooting, right? Because another one happened to happen right before, And then she got swept into this
like in her town.
Exactly. She got swept up into this like anti-gun activism. So like if that hadn't happened again by random chance, we could be living in a totally different world where Emma is like dead or like in prison for being a mass shooter, right? And like these strange happenings that we see as like, oh, this is the most like psychologically awful, terrible thing is basically just down to chance. And like the torture of knowing that, the way that we have to twist our brains around to forget that that is true.
Right. Damn. I was just reading this thing the other day about the possibility of like quantum happenstance, and it was really a terrifying thought. Have you ever read about this?
Yeah, I think about stuff like that all the time. I think about the unknowable lightness of being, or unbearable lightness of being, I think is the phrase. It's just like the inability for humans to grasp the idea that so much is due to random chance. You know?
Yes.
And I think that especially in America, we are like brainwashed into thinking that everything that we have achieved and everything that is like a vice of ours or a problem that we have is due to our own actions. And that's just not true. You know, I think that people have a tough time reckoning with the fact that so much of it is due to randomness, stochasticity.
What word did you just say?
Stochasticity.
Stochasticity.
It's basically another word for random.
Interesting.
Noisiness.
Flexing your PhD.
One other thing I wanted to touch on is the DJ.
Not you having thoughts about the wedding DJ.
No, well, not the quality of the music.
You didn't even go.
Not the quality of the music, just like...
I know, I'm kidding.
This is a microcosm for the whole philosophical thing that underpins this movie, right? Is like right after they come away from their dance lesson with this like very horrible dance instructor that I found that was a pretty funny scene.
Well, okay, yeah. So for those who haven't watched the movie or don't plan to, basically, after this bomb is dropped at dinner, we still have to go through the next few days with Emma and Charlie as Charlie is trying to process this and Emma is trying to kind of keep things together and ensure, like she's constantly trying to reassure herself and Charlie that the wedding should go on. And we are now watching them do all the things that couples have like always do, like check on the flowers, go to the venue, you know, do a test shoot with their photographer, like after this happens.
And that's where a lot of the humor comes in, is when these two characters who are obviously like going through something, Emma, first of all, the day after is just like violently hungover. So that's like alone kind of funny enough. And then also they're dealing with this like bomb that was just dropped and they haven't really even had a chance to have a full conversation about it yet. So there's like a real awkward energy there. And all of the vendors are like different versions of horrible and like awkward.
I love Zoe Winters as a photographer.
She's incredible. Yeah, I mean, as an actor.
I love her. She is such a great actor. She's so funny.
Also the best part of Materialists, which is like kind of, is in the Materialist slot for A24 this year. It's the same time of year and everything. Yeah.
Yes, I was just thinking that. I was like, there were a lot of things about the Materialists that this movie reminded me of.
I think this is better than Materialist for sure, though.
I think it's better too, but there's like an energy that's very similar.
Yeah, but the point about the DJ is that actually they see the DJ smoking heroin before the bomb is dropped. This is like before the secret is revealed. They see her on the street. They have a conversation basically about like, should we fire her? And it's like, for doing drugs? Like, I don't think... It's funny because Emma's like, I don't think we should, you know, kind of foreshadowing the fact that she has this secret that she, you know, feels odd about. And Charlie's like, I feel like we should probably just get somebody else. And then, so it's kind of like an open question. And then after the bomb is dropped at the actual wedding itself, maybe day of, like the morning of the wedding, which this is also,
I believe it was
crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, this whole like few days after the bomb dropped, like leading up to the wedding, firstly, I was stressed out at the wine tasting scene or the food tasting scene because I'm like, this is stressful. These people, like this venue, like let you in late so that you guys could do this. And they're acting like they're at like a restaurant, just like chilling, having drinks and dinner out with their friends. But like the people in the kitchen make several different comments about how it's like, they're like, this isn't a restaurant.
We're not a bar. Yeah.
Just want these people to like eat, taste their food and then leave. So I was very stressed out as like a person with the events background about everything happening, including them checking on all these different vendors like days before the wedding. I'm like, girl, this should have been done months ago.
Yeah. And they have a conversation with the DJ the morning of the wedding and choose to fire her basically.
While she's already set up.
Yeah. And she lies and says that she wasn't smoking, you know, heroin on the street, which is, I think, an interesting, you know, this is just another example of somebody who's hiding this thing that they're like ashamed of and they can't like bear to bring to the light. And I found that pretty interesting. And this is also after Charlie has like attempted to sleep with his coworker and like, there's a lot of stuff going on in that scene.
I also felt it was unrealistic that they were like, okay, we have to fire you. And she's like, you're kind of being a judgmental bitch.
It was really funny because this is one of the biggest laugh out loud moments in the theater, because Emma is like talking to her and she's like, all we're asking you to do is be honest. And just, we did see you on the street. Like, can you just talk to us about it? And she's like, okay, let me be honest. And then Emma's like, okay, great. That's all we want. And then she's like, you're a fucking cunt. And then she's like, okay, you're fired. And then the day of the wedding, they have to go out and find a new DJ, which is crazy. And of course, the new DJ is like absolutely unhinged.
That man, biggest jump scare of the entire movie, by the way, when they were talking. Oh, God.
Very dark. This movie, I think, was pretty funny in a very dark way. And I think that there is going to be a large proportion of people who see this movie and don't find it funny because the subject matter is like very touchy.
That would be me.
Yeah.
I saw what was supposed to be funny, but I'm like, I'm too wrapped up in all the stress that's happening.
Yeah.
And how Charlie is processing all of this. And then, especially at the wedding, Emma is also extremely anxious because of some different things she overhears. She thinks that people are talking about her and know her secret and think that Rachel has gone around telling people.
And also Rachel's like all-time passive aggressive bridesmaid speech, which is,
that speech was crazy.
Like, actually, I know we're not using diabolical, but like in the sense that it is so of the devil, actually. Diabolical. Yeah.
So dork-sided, Justin. Hated that. Okay, I had another gripe. I hate when the families in movies like this are like, they talk about how important they are, but then we don't see that play out on screen. And I get it, like, we don't need to spend a ton of time exposing all of that.
Yeah.
But do you think that was also to like talk about how like vapid these people are and how concerned with appearances they are?
The juxtaposition of the speech that Emma's dad gives with the Emma that we know existed at that time is, I think, very intentional. It shows like how so much of our personas are created by like narratives that other people tell about us or that we tell about ourselves.
Right.
And again, like the unknowability of even your own children, right? Because I don't think that her parents knew that she almost went through this mass shooting thing, right? So
they have no clue.
Exactly.
Based on what he was talking about, how his gun mysteriously disappeared, thinking it was because she was like suddenly becoming like a anti-gun violence advocate.
Right. So I think that it was also intentional to show like, even these like supposedly very close familial relationships, you still don't really know somebody at the same level that you do when you're connecting with them for the rest of your life, supposedly.
Living with them. Cohabitation tells all.
So yeah, I thought that was also very intentional. I think that it is very much a satire, I think, of this upper crust, young millennial demographic of person. That was one of the things that I liked about it, is that it felt really real. I don't know, like I think that a lot of people that I personally know, not to the extent, the like hilarious extent of the movie,
but I agree
but like
with you.
The way that people kind of need to psychologically protect themselves from like what's actually underneath.
I feel like I have met so many people, like friends of friends, that remind me of these folk, of Emma and Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can see a lot of like through lines here.
Yeah, I can see where the stress, the tension, the lines of tension are here.
Yep.
Yeah, and then of course the culmination, like the climax of the movie, is this like incredibly awful wedding where,
oh my God,
like revelation on revelation, Emma learns that Charlie cheated on her with his coworker, and then his coworker's boyfriend finds out, and in an insane scene, I would just assumed he was going to get punched, and it's a bit of a twist when he goes for the headbutt.
Yeah.
That was a very funny slapstick comedy scene, to be honest with you, for me at least.
Oh my God, Justin, you thought that was funny?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't believe that.
It's it's all kind of a farce at this point. To me, the ending of the wedding was very slapstick.
The only thing that I actually thought was like funny in that scene was Misha in the background going, "Use your words," to her like man-child boyfriend who just fucking headbutted the groom. I was just like, the speeches were so crazy.
Charlie's speech too. Speech. I actually covered my eyes.
That was so cringe. Yeah, me too. I was doing this in the theater. I was like, oh my God, stop speaking. It was so
It's almost like exposure therapy for like the worst possible wedding. And it is interesting just having gotten married last summer.
Did you get married last year?
This is the first time you're hearing
of
it.
Was that last year?
I think it was 2025, yeah.
Oh my God.
So having like just gone through a lot of this stuff, I mean, I had a very wonderful time. I would say there were no parallels.
There were no Charlie speeches. There were no Rachel speeches.
There were no Rachel speeches. It was all love. But like that is kind of the nightmare where you're like, all of these people who kind of know all of these ugly stories about me and like people who have known me for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the nightmare of like, does everybody secretly hate me? Seeing that play out in this way is almost like exposure therapy.
I want to say we need to give a big shout out to, I believe it's pronounced Mamadou Ache.
Yeah.
Who played Charlie's best man and good friend Mike. This poor man had an impossible task, which was to try to keep things like light, airy, enjoyable, and moving forward in a positive direction. And his wife was just cutting his legs off at every move.
I saw this character and I was like, this is going to be Geoff's favorite character. He's trying to keep to the event timeline. He's light on his feet. So he's like, okay, the bride is not going to be giving a speech. So instead, we're going to go on to Charlie. And like so smooth about it. So well-intentioned. All things considered, probably the best person in the movie.
Oh, 100%.
And it's not particularly close.
Yeah, it's not at all. Yeah, damn. What an impossible situation. That was crazy. Let's talk about the ending of the film. So after the wedding, this disaster of a wedding in which Rachel stands up and gives... Oh, wait, we didn't talk about Rachel's speech. She berated this woman for not having friends, made fun of Emma for asking herself, Rachel, to be her bridesmaid.
Maid of honor.
Or, sorry, maid of honor, yes. Made off-color jokes about her... What was she saying about the parents? I forget what she said.
I don't remember.
It doesn't matter. It was just... so dark-sided and awful and of ill spirit.
It was just mean.
Yeah.
It goes back to that idea of like, we should just be having more sympathy for people. My best man, we've known each other for a really long time, but I know a lot of people whose best man or maid of honor is like a relatively new acquaintance.
Right.
I think that often does cause like speculation or like people are like, that's an interesting choice.
Right.
But like Emma in this film, like some people just find it hard to find their people and to make friends. And like, I don't think that we should be like criticizing or skeptical of those people. So that one, I was actually kind of like personally mad at Rachel when she's made that comment. Because I'm like, why are you just being so mean about this?
I do think that like Rachel reminds me of somebody, and I'm not going to say their name on camera, but it reminds me of somebody that I used to be close with and someone who you know of, at least. I think that you've met, but you know of them.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this uncanny ability to make everything about her and completely lose sight of the fact that this was somebody else's wedding. And like, you know, my thing is like, fine, you don't want to be the best woman. What is it?
Maid of honor.
Maid of honor. What a fucking stupid ass title, by the way. Maid of honor, like, just don't go. And like, if she's really that upset about it, like, then don't go and let your husband go because he has a commitment to his great friend Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be there for him. And you don't have to be a part of it. But to go and then be a total fucking insufferable bitch about it and make that speech in that moment all about her, when she can also already see that something else has gone wrong with Emma and Charlie, is crazy behavior. That is actually diabolical for real.
Yeah, she's easily the worst character here. But also like very real. Like we've said multiple times. It's very lived in.
Character.
Yeah,
100%.
Well written, well observed. Okay, finally the ending.
The ending.
After Emma kind of runs, she literally is almost a runaway bride. I mean, the ceremony happens, but after the ceremony, she runs off and is kind of missing. She stays with her dad. And Charlie, who at this point has gotten so drunk that he pukes, and then he's gotten headbutted in the face. He's like bleeding. He's all fucked up.
Bruises.
He goes to a diner that they had talked about going to after their wedding day.
Which I thought was cute.
I did think that was kind of cute. He compared it to the way that Oscar winners will go to In-N-Out and grab a burger, the same way that famously Michael B. Jordan went and got an In-N-Out burger after he won Best Actor at the Oscars. It doesn't seem like he was hoping to see Emma there, but he was like, I kind of just want to eat and like sit somewhere. And I think it's that sense of being around people where you're anonymous.
Yes.
Like there is a certain safety in just going out in public where nobody knows who you are, right? And it's that pain of people knowing you truly and deeply is hard, right? And like that's the underlying insecurity that I think motivates a lot of his actions in the back half of the film.
I agree completely.
So he shows up at the diner, he grabs his burger, and then Emma walks by, also comes in, orders food. sits down with Charlie, and she does her recurring thing where she says, do you come here often?
Mm-hmm.
It is like an interesting statement on knowing versus not knowing and how that translates into a relationship dynamic. Sometimes the exciting part of a relationship is getting to know someone. And I think that's why the beginning of a relationship, why you have this cloud nine. Once you really know somebody, there's the risk of it becoming stale.
Yeah.
And this idea of like, I'm not sure what it's trying to say, but it is a really interesting observation of like protecting that distance in some ways, but also knowing who this person is. Like it's kind of Emma's way of saying, I've forgiven you for what you've done, and I'm still choosing to be with you.
Yes.
And taking this leap of faith, because I know that I can't possibly know who you are completely, but I like being around you and being with you. So let's start over, basically.
Right. That was something that I thought about too. I think Emma's sort of ethos is that it's never too late to completely change your life, and it's never too late to try again.
Mm-hmm.
When Charlie, like what you just said about Charlie, I think like summed up my feeling about him is that he's incapable of actually bearing it all and showing who he really is.
Mm-hmm.
And so for him, anonymity is an escape, like a refuge. And for Emma, it's like an opportunity. She like saw the opportunity to shirk her identity as like a disturbed, school shooter type, be a part of a community where she was like naturally kind of accepted and put into a leadership position and do like anti-gun violence. And now she is like choosing to just continue to be with Charlie and be like, I see you, but let's pretend everything is like all right. And like, let's let that, what happened, and let's keep it moving.
Yeah, that's a good observation. That's a really good observation, because I do think that like Emma's willingness to take on Charlie's friends as her own, like choosing Rachel as her maid of honor, for example, shows a fearlessness. And maybe it shows a little bit of like, she in some ways is more mature than Charlie, because she has already dealt with this like change in who she sees herself as, like this change in her persona that she has already kind of accepted and processed. And to her, that's like a solved problem. Like that is a done deal.
Right.
And to Charlie, he's just learning about it now, and it's changing who he thinks that she is. But she's like, I'm confident in who I am, and I know that I'm not that person anymore. And you can either believe me or not believe me.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. I do think it's a fascinating question to explore in film. A, how much do you ever really know somebody? And then B, once you learn more about someone, can you still see them as the person that you thought you knew or thought that you were in love with? It's a really interesting question. I don't think that the movie necessarily answers the question because we don't know what happens after this.
Yeah.
For Emma, that is true. I think the question here is that true for Charlie as well?
Yeah, and I think that the movie isn't trying to say happily ever after they're going to stay married for the rest of their lives. It's more just like, this is the decision that Emma and Charlie have come down on when it comes to this, right? And I think that still makes for a satisfying conclusion. And it also, to get into some of the more controversial stuff, I do think that this is where the parallel lines up with that Borgley essay that showed up in that magazine. It's this moment in time that's like crystallized. And I think it's interesting. This obviously wasn't designed, but like it's interesting that this came out, and this is now, we're talking 14 years ago that this happened, right? And it's like, how much does that color your perception of this man now who has made this film?
Yeah.
And it has changed my perception of the movie.
Right.
And it's actually kind of crazy, because when they're talking about the DJ, whether they should fire her or not, I think Rachel says like, well, would you fire her if she was a pedophile?
Right.
And like, that feels like the parallel there, the synchronicity there is like crazy. So that's one through line that I've been kind of wrestling with, and I'm not really sure how to resolve that, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought this movie was good. For me, if I was going to give it a grade, I'd probably say it's like a 7 out of 10. I think that Zendaya and Robert Pattinson were excellent in it.
Yeah, they both gave incredible performances. I think especially our Pat.
Yeah.
Some of the like, crash out moments that he portrays are like really embodied. Like when he comes back from the shit show of a wedding and he puts on the song that Emma plays to cheer him up, and he like tries to cheer himself up by dancing, and then like convulses and grabs himself and then pukes everywhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of throwing up in this film. I gotta tell you, I don't like that. That's tough for me. It makes me be like
minus 1 point for Geoff on that one.
Yeah, 100%. That was like 5 points off the final grade. By the way, that song that she plays, I love it. It's called I Want to Lay With You by Shira Small. Very underrated hit from the 80s. Ooh, Good shit. It's been in my head for days.
The other, I think, common criticism that I've seen of the film is its handling of gun violence as an issue, because it does, in some ways, it is kind of just a plot device to get us to question Emma, and it doesn't really engage with the idea of gun violence as like a systemic problem.
Well, that's interesting, because while Charlie is like trying to convince Mike and Rachel that it was okay that he was going to continue with the wedding and go through with it, because he was trying to convince himself as much as he was trying to convince them. He was like, this kind of makes sense. I mean, you guys grew up in America. This is a society that loves guns. Think about how many people out there probably had access to this, and the thought at least crossed their mind, which, like, of course was not a winning argument, especially for Rachel, but was fascinating because in the world of the film, he is like, and real life, he's British.
He's British, yeah.
And it's like, it really is a very different culture in many ways. And I would say that the like prevalence of guns and the amount of people who own them and talk about it a lot, and it's like a part of their like identity and also their political ideology oftentimes, is very uniquely American. Mm-hmm. And you do have to kind of wonder. You don't have to wonder. I think that it's clear that like the prevalence of guns makes gun violence more common here, right? I mean, I don't think anybody is going to argue that that's not the case, but it is fascinating to see this character who is an expat British expat, coming in and being like, yeah, but you guys, this is part of your culture, so like we can't be surprised.
In my opinion, it's basically as well as it could be treated for a movie that's not about
it's not violence, about it, exactly.
Right? This is more about like the human psyche than it is about gun violence,
right?
And it does like at least show enough attention to the issue to show like, well, we did think about this a little bit, right? Like he throws out isn't this just like an American thing? And again, he's kind of trying to convince himself, and he's putting through all these bullshit reasons. So like he's not really making that argument in good faith, because he also says like, well, she also was dealing with this like trauma from her friend's death, and this is like
thing that was
basically
crazy.
a twisted truth, right?
It was a lie.
Rachel and Mike are like, oh well, that seems to be what convinces them. And that goes back to the whole like sometimes shit is just random, right? Like people don't become mass shooters every time because of one specific trauma that happened to them.
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy to like, again, this is like a psychological tool that they use to kind of allow themselves to forgive Emma for this thought that she had, just to like come up with this backstory.
Yes.
And the American thing seems to be in the same line as that, where he's just like grasping for straws to find something that allows him to forgive her.
But I do think that, if we step outside of the characters in the world of the film, and we're looking at this through like a more critical lens of like, what is this movie saying and what is the film saying? I think that is an interesting way to engage in the topic of gun violence that has not really been done. Because, we often hear so much about the bullying, we hear about the cyberbullying, we hear about like the loneliness epidemic, and like they do touch on all those things, but it is a more interesting question to like ask, like how many other people out there have like come close to this and we just don't really know about that.
Yeah.
And you were talking about like the randomness, and it's true. It's like there are so many millions of kids in America who have been like bullied in school and stuff, and most of them did not become school shooters, or didn't like almost like glorify this identity. I do have a question about the film that I don't think was ever answered in any kind of satisfactory way for me. When he's in his office, like truly like at his lowest, and Charlie is just like spinning out and can't get over the idea that his fiance was almost a school shooter as like a teenager, this magazine called Brain Rot just shows up, and it's like all this magazine that's basically just images of like hot girls like holding guns that are like scantily clad and in obviously very phallic and sexual positions with the guns.
Yeah.
And like that is not explained as to why it shows up. I wondered what you thought about that, because I didn't really know what to make of it. It almost felt like a red herring.
Yeah, in terms of like logistically how it ended up on his desk, I think it was just like a coincidence that this is something that happened to show up on his desk around the same time that this happened. But then it also served as one of many, I'm seeing this everywhere, this is infecting my life, this idea, right? Because I think the second time he looks at it, he starts to kind of like hallucinate, or again, it's these intrusive thoughts that are being visualized. He starts to see Emma as all the models.
Yes.
And I gotta say, those Zendaya looking really good in that photo shoot.
They were well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zendaya is actually hot. I don't know if
Did you know?
It's crazy.
Did you know that Zendaya is really hot?
Wow. All we had to do is take off her glasses.
Also, like, beautiful at the wedding. I was like, wow, this is a really like attractive couple, you know?
I also like loved their, this is so like vapid and has nothing to do with the quality of the film, but I really loved their outfits when they were at their photography test.
Yes. I mean, this is the whole, like, it felt really like Borgley hangs out with these people. Do you know what I mean? Like, they feel like actual people that I have met.
Yes.
And I think that is a sign that he's really hitting on something that feels really true with this film.
Yeah. And I think that, you know what? I think you're right. Like, the amount of like cringe millennial shit that happens in this movie, maybe that is what I am drawing like a parallel to Materialists.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it could just be that these people do seem like people we know, do have similar values, are like the quintessential millennials who care a ton about how they come off to others and like appearing kind and appearing virtuistic.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think I'm probably higher on this a little bit more than you. I probably would put it at like the 8 out of 10 on my scale.
Egads. Well, I do have to tell you the director shit is like definitely clouding my vision in terms of like this movie in its entirety.
Yeah, it's hard to separate that. And like the timing is kind of wild. Like, I'm kind of surprised that this hadn't surfaced earlier, given that it was published in 2012 and this is his, I think, 4th film. Wild that it happened to surface at this time with this movie that is almost exactly about this idea of like being haunted by like one moment from your past. Yeah, I mean, I'm still, again, I haven't really completely reconciled those two things in my brain, but I did find that the movie was pretty entertaining. And it's, you know, this is not going to be an awards movie. I think it's too controversial on multiple levels to be an awards movie. And it's also not going to be a banger because I think Super Mario Galaxy is going to make 10 times whatever this movie makes.
Oh, God, yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is like, I don't necessarily feel like supporting this movie or going to see it is like, it doesn't cross the ick line for me because this is not going to become like a monoculture moment, I don't think. It leads to a lot of interesting conversation, that's for sure.
That's true. And you know what, Justin? I mean, given that your mom is J.K. Rowling and that she has said so many insane things, you know, about feminism, about turfdom, I'm not surprised that you're giving this director so much grace. You're being non-judgmental, just like Emma.
We're just going to close on that Pandora's box.
I think so. I think so.
Okay, Geoff. Well, with that, let's take a quick break and we'll come right back with our What's Goods.
I can't wait to hear what's good.
And we're back.
Justin, we're so back. And what a crazy episode we've had. And what a crazy film.
What a crazy film. Yeah, the drama, a lot of drama surrounding that film, Geoff. And I'm glad we got to talk about it together. But it's the time of the episode now where we got to talk about what's been good with us this week.
That's exactly right.
And Geoff, that leads me to my question. What's good with you?
Well, Justin, I have been really enjoying a new show that is streaming on HBO Max, whatever it's called now. You know, I can't keep up. And it's called Rooster. And it stars Steve Carell and a bunch of other actors that I don't know, but who I really like. Actually, no, there's one guy that I know who was on Scrubs for a long time. I can't think of his name. I should have prepared this part, but I'm not going to. And I didn't. But this is a really fun show. The premise of the show is that Steve Carell plays kind of a hack author who writes like really light, easy to read, like beach read type books.
This is like Jack Reacher type stuff.
Exactly that vibe. Like Jack Reacher, authorship, Jodi Picoult, like that kind of a writer who's like very successful and like does a great job at what they do, but there's not a ton of depth to his work. He has a daughter who teaches at a prestigious like liberal arts college set in the Northeast. And she is a professor there. She's married to another professor, and her life starts to fall apart when her husband falls in love with, it's such a cliche, with one of his grad students, and they start having an affair, and her life is falling apart. Her father has been invited by his friend, who is the long-serving president of this college where his daughter works, to come and like be like do like a lecture and a talk with students afterwards. And the president of the college, he's feeling all the things that are going on with higher ed right now, like people being like, the money isn't worth going to like one of these private schools. We'll do community college and then just get our degree at like an affordable state university, that kind of a thing. So he's competing with that, and he's trying to get like he's trying to really drum up interest in the college, and he's under that kind of a pressure, and he just had to lay off a bunch of professors and close down academic departments. So he's like, hey, like, I did you a solid by getting your daughter a job here and her husband. And he's like, I need you to come here and be a teacher and now, be a professor in our English department, which is, falling apart. And he's like, I'm not interested in doing that. And he's like, well, there's this huge controversy going on with your daughter and her husband. So if you don't, come here and do this for me, then maybe they're going to find themselves in a tough situation.
Yeah.
So he's kind of blackmailing Steve Carell to like come and teach. And so he does, and he's a terrible teacher and kind of a shitty writer. And so he's like teamed up with a mentor who is one of the English professors who like is really truly just like a mentor, wants to develop the next generation of great writers. And so she is like, he's kind of a shitty writer. And now I'm being made as a black woman to mentor this white man who's so average and who has like gotten so much more success than I have in my life monetarily in terms of recognition. And now I'm having to teach him and prop him up. And he runs into all kinds of issues. He's like just the kind of person who's always sticking his foot in his mouth. And like there's a very funny scene where he like accidentally like gropes a student. There's another scene where he like really gets himself in a tangle trying to use pronouns correctly. It's like that kind of stuff, but it's like, it's actually well done. It's very funny. Even though Steve Carell's character is like a total dipshit, he is very lovable and he cares a lot about trying to be a good person. And he's just like the kind of guy who just can't get out of his own way. Like he's really well intentioned, and he's not like, oh, sorry, they, back in my day we had boys and girls. He's not like that. But it's funny that like we live in this era, and so a lot of the other professors view him as this kind of a person, but he's really not at all. He's just an idiot and doesn't understand. And he's also been like put in a bubble by his success. He's very wealthy and like has never really had to engage with any of this stuff because he writes fluff.
Yeah.
So it's a really fun dynamic. The show's half an hour long, which I love. The cast is really good, great comedic timing. It was co-created by the director or the creator of Shrinking, which was on HBO. Sorry, not HBO, Apple TV. And some of the writers who were involved with Shrinking, who are involved with Shrinking and were involved with Ted Lasso are on the show as well. It definitely has a little bit of that Ted Lasso underdog vibe to it, but it's not as saccharine as Shrinking or Ted Lasso are.
Interesting. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of overlap between like his character, Steve Carell's character in this show, and Michael Scott.
There is a bit.
Like a lovable doofus, although I think Michael Scott maybe is a little bit meaner and a little bit more like openly, it sounds like, from what you're saying.
Michael Scott is definitely more cynical than this character is, and also is a bit of a narcissist. This guy is not a narcissist. He basically fell into this like incredible career and also doesn't think that he's like a great writer or anything. Like he's like, I guess I can do this, but he's like, I don't do, I'm not a professor because I'm really not good. I write fluffy beach reads that people just really like.
Yeah.
The president of the university is a funny character, also extraordinarily cynical, and he's just like, who cares? He's like, you got a big name and my college needs a big name to draw an audience and bring in parents who are going to pay tuition so this place can continue to exist.
Just looking at the Wikipedia page for this TV show, first of all, not a lot of information on here. So I'm not sure if people are watching this.
Yeah, I don't think they are.
But also, Danielle Deadwyler is one of the other stars.
Yes.
She plays
Dylan Shepard. She's the professor that has to mentor Steve Carell's character, who's Greg Russo.
This is the second mention of her in the last few weeks because she also is the star of the X-Files reboot. The pilot is being directed by Ryan Coogler.
Oh, that's her. That's right.
Yeah. So that's a pretty cool connection there. I saw some early buzz about this show saying that it was really funny, but I think like after the premiere, it fell off and wasn't on my radar as much, but I'll give it a look.
Now that I have the cast list in front of me, there are people on here who I genuinely think are great, but I want to name the actors. So, of course, we've talked about Steve Carell and Daniel Deadweiler. The president of the university is played by, or college is played by John C. McGinley, who was on Scrubs and all kinds of other shows. Connie Britton, who I love, best hair in Hollywood, by the way, has a small role in the show. Robbie Hoffman plays one of the other professors, and she's very funny. Rich Glassman, who's like one of my favorite comedians, also plays another professor at the university. Phil Dunster, who was in Ted Lasso, is Archie, who is the husband of Katie Russo, Greg's daughter, who is played by Charlie Clive. And then Lauren Tsai is a very funny comedic actor who plays the grad student that Archie falls in love with, and she's very deadpan, which I love. Great cast, great show.
Thanks for that recommendation, Geoff. Very good rec.
Justin, what's been good with you this week?
Well, Geoff, a couple weeks ago, I saw Project Hail Mary. And unless you've been living under a rock, you probably have heard about this movie. It has been dominating at the box office. I think probably to be broken this weekend by the new Super Mario movie, which I'm sure will beat the drama, sadly, in the theater.
Yeah.
This film, for the last few weeks, has been absolutely doing numbers. I think this will likely be an awards film, which is kind of surprising. This is a film that was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who are, of course, the directors behind 21 and 22 Jump Street. Those two comedy films starring Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, both very good.
Love them. Gotta say, love those movies.
They're also writers and producers of the Into the Spider-Verse films, which are like probably some of the best animated films you've seen in the last 10 years or so. And this film is based on a 2021 novel by Andy Weir, which, of course, I did read. I did read the book, actually.
I remember that you read this, actually.
Same author as The Martian, which, of course, was adapted into a 2015 film directed by Ridley Scott. That was an awards movie. And the tone of Project Hail Mary, this new film, is very similar to The Martian.
Okay.
Andy Weir is known for doing what's called like hard sci-fi, where he like really focuses on like the nitty gritty scientific backings, underpinnings for his sci-fi.
The physics of it.
And it's very dad jokey. I don't know if you remember The Martian, but like he's basically, Matt Damon stars in that film and he's kind of talking to camera the whole time and kind of making jokes to himself. And I think that for a certain type of person, that's kind of black licorice. That's very eye-rolly and cheesy.
I am that person.
I think that you're that person, which is why I did not propose doing an episode on this film, because I think you may not have enjoyed it as much as I did, but I found it pretty fun. This one stars Ryan Gosling, who, of course, we all know as Ken and everything else, and Sandra Hüller. Sandra Hüller is maybe not as well known, but she was incredible in Anatomy of a Fall a few years ago. That was an Oscar nom film.
So good.
And this is like a big Hollywood break for her because, again, this is probably going to be one of the biggest films of the year.
A blockbuster.
Ryan Gosling plays Ryland Grace, who is a middle school teacher. The movie opens with him waking up from a coma on a spacecraft to find that he has amnesia and all of the other crewmates on the ship are dead. So he is alone on the ship. He has no idea what he's doing there. And he's a middle school teacher with like a background in science, but you know, he's not an astronaut, so he has no idea what the fuck is going on.
He's not an astrophysicist?
He's not an astrophysicist. That's definitely not what he is. And through flashbacks, we learn early in the film that the reason why he's on this spaceship is that the sun, our sun, you know, that we orbit around, and every other star that's visible are slowly dimming faster than expected. And eventually scientists learn that this is due to a newly discovered cosmic microorganism, which is called astrophage. So these little guys are basically like eating suns. And of course, if the sun goes out, we're dead. The entire species is dead.
Yeah.
And in fact, any other life in the universe is also dead because we're seeing this across all of the stars. So this is like really a universe level problem. But scientists ID a distant star that is not dimming. It's the only star that they can see that's not dimming. And this is really the only shot to figure out how to stop the astrophage, is to send people out to that star, even though it's like many, many light years away on a spaceship. So they send Ryland and his team out there. He just happens to be the only one that survives. And they have to figure out why this star is not dimming and how that might help them fix the astrophage problem on Earth.
And how about why all his crew's dead? Is that something we also have to find out?
We find out in the film, but the reason why they're dead, and it's not really a spoiler because this is just like it told to you in the first 5 minutes, this is the first time that any human has gone this far, right? They had to put them into comas to like make sure that they could survive the long journey and the high Gs and all of that stuff that they're undergoing in this spaceship. So like the reason why it's called Project Hail Mary is that this is like a real long shot. right? Like nobody's ever done this before. They don't even know what they're going to find when they get to this star. And then on top of that, they have to send all the information back in a probe to Earth. And then Earth has to like implement this. So there's like a lot of different levels of novelty to this that it was just like almost impossible to accomplish. So it's not like surprising in hindsight that so many of the crewmates died, because nobody has ever, in the world of Project Hail Mary, no one has ever pulled off a trip like this before.
And how far did they go?
I think it's like 11 light years, but I could be wrong.
So he's never coming back.
I will say that we learned that it was designed as a one-way trip.
Yeah.
They do not have the fuel to get back, basically. Okay, so why is this movie good?
Yes.
I think that Ryan Gosling is like a generational talent. A lot of this film is him just acting alone in a spaceship. And he's kind of the only guy that has the charm to be able to pull it off. Mm. And the movie is often very funny, which isn't surprising if you know Phil Lord and Chris Miller's oeuvre, right? Their whole thing is like this action comedy hybrid. And it really works here in this setting with Project Hail Mary. I mentioned Sandra Hüller, who plays Eva Stratt. She's the leader of the Project Hail Mary project on Earth. She is like a really hard, cold character, but there's a really incredible karaoke scene where she sings a song that I won't spoil. And you know that we're lovers of karaoke here on the pod.
Sure are.
All-time karaoke scene where she sings a great Harry Styles song, actually.
Oh, I know about this.
So her performance is really, really fun. Maybe the deepest character. Everything is practical. That's another thing that I think is really cool. They actually built out the entire spaceship that Grace is in.
That's very cool.
A lot of the special effects are practical. It's probably not a spoiler because this has been advertised heavily, but there is a creature that is in this film, an alien. And this alien is also entirely practical. It's a puppet. And the puppet work is insane. So the production quality, like even if this doesn't get nominated for Best Picture, this is going to win every single below the line category, I think. Like visual effects especially, I think this is going to be a shoe-in for. Yeah, so it's just like a really joyful blockbuster film that's very funny. People are like crying at this movie. Really? That wasn't me. It was a little bit like too saccharine, a little bit too sweet for me to sure. get that emotionally tied to it.
A little bit too sweet.
But I think a lot of people have had like an emotional reaction to this. And yeah, it was a really fun watch. And we'll be watching it for sure in the next few months as award season approaches. So definitely check out Project Hail Mary. I think a lot of our viewers have probably already watched it.
I just read the plot.
The entire plot?
Well, just the last part of it.
Just the last part of
This is crazy.
You spoiled it for yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to watch it.
Okay.
Because I don't like that. I don't like the talking to camera and like little jokes to yourself. That's not my
know,
vibe.
yeah. I know that that's not your thing. Yeah.
Justin, what an episode it's been.
I know you need to get to Easter brunch, so
I sure do.
I'm going to let you get on that.
Thank you. I hope you, don't forget to call your mom. I know she wants to tell you all of her new thoughts about, anti-trans legislation in the UK. So give JK a call. Don't tell her I said hi because we're not friends and I don't support her.
You're on a first name basis, apparently. So
I'm just saying I know her as JK to you. That's all.
Okay.
J.K.
Rowling is not my mother, for the record.
Bye. Bye. That's not true. Bye.
This has been Bants with Geoff and Justin. Bants is created and produced by Jeff Taylor and Justin Benavides. Graphic design by Geoff. Editing by me. The theme music for Bants is the track Nebraska With You by Sam Day and is provided by No Copyright Sounds. Email us at bantspod@gmail.com with any questions, recommendations, or just to say hi. If you like the podcast, rate and review us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And tell your friends. Bye.
I just want to tell you one more thing I think about trans people. J.K. Rowling, everyone.